Hello and welcome back to History Tweaks for another alternate history scenario. Well, I'm back at this after a long time, and so I thought let me do something different today. Today, we will move away from our usual content of history based scenarios and explore another realm of geography, because geographical facts do alter historical realities. And this time, the scenario will look at a change in a particular geographical fact and the historical implications of it. Now, because of the differing nature of the scenario, there won't be the usual format of me explaining what happened in our timeline and then moving into the scenario. Instead, we will jump right in. So, without further ado, let us start. It has been 30 years since Pushyamitra Shunga captured the throne of the Mauryan Empire and established Shunga rule in Patliputra. Since coming to power, the Shunga dynasty have greatly repatronized Hinduism, performing rituals such as the Ashwamedh Yajna. On the other hand, Buddhism, which was heavily propagated and patronized under Ashoka and his successors, has receded over the last 50 years away from the Gangetic heartland into pockets in central India and in Vanga. In the northwest, the empire has lost territories beyond Indraprastha to the Indo-Greek kingdom. The successors of both the Seleucid Empire as well as the local satraps left behind by Alexander, the Indo-Greeks have consolidated their hold over the northwestern region from their capital, Alexandria in Caucasus or modern-day Kandahar. Here, Buddhism continues to flourish and mingle with Grecian culture. In south-central India, the Shatvahanas, former vassals of the Mauryans, have risen up. Hindu and Brahmanical by religion, they have nonetheless adapted the customs to include greater status for women, matronymic naming systems, as well as a class based system of society. Unlike the Shungas, they have also greatly expanded the Mauryan trade out of the ports of Sopara and Kalyan. India currently is in an inter empire vacuum. Shungas on their way to decline, while the Indo Greeks and Shatvahanas are unable to capitalize on the vacuum left by them. At this crucial juncture, Eutrides II, at his capital, feels the tremors of an earthquake. Being quite a regular occurrence over the last decade, he merely asks for a survey of damages. But then, heavy tremors soon follow. With its epicenter in the upper Himalayas, the powerful earthquake rocks the whole of the northern Himalayas, with tremors being felt from Mathura to Takshashila and Alexandria and Caucasus, present day Kandahar. Already having faced multiple light earthquakes over the decade, the latest strong one leaves large-scale devastation in Takshashila, Sangala, and other settlements in the Indo-Greek kingdom. This creates internal turmoil, and Eutrides is forced to delegate the administration of Inner Punjab and Indraprasth to vassals. With administrative machinery stretched to a brink, by 145 BCE, Indraprastha declares independence. And with the death of Eutrides, the kingdom faces civil war. With the end of the civil war and Meander I coming to power, the process of rebuilding devastated areas continues. Almost as if an divine intervention has taken place, the regular flash flood that usually plague the Indus plains yearly do not happen. Meander declares a feast in the name of Tethys and Sindhu. The Indus seems to have slowed down from its usual fast flow. On the other hand, chieftains of the Haryana region also call for a yagna to the rain gods. The king of Indraprasth receives reports that the Gagar river is expanding in width and carries more water. As the summer of 144 BCE rolls by, Indraprasth feels a strain on the water resources. The Yamuna seems to carry much lesser water this year around. In fact, the Yamuna had been diminishing for the last couple of years. The king orders more wells to be dug across Indraprastha. On the other hand, the chieftains also report that the Gagar river did not dry up this summer, and a new tributary seemed to have joined it from the east, which they promptly start calling Dudsag. Some farmers start hinting at a possible shift in cultivation to the Gagar river if they don't see an elevation in the water situation of Indraprastha. Over in Patliputra too, the water seems to run slightly low, but this does not alarm many as of now. Unbeknownst to any of them, a series of earthquakes, culminating in the final one, has caused a shift in the river systems in the heart of the Himalayas. The earthquakes have turned the Yamuna into an old paleo channel, which now meets the Gagar river. And it was this turned Yamuna that people have started calling Dudhsagar. Some water from minor tributaries and aquifers continue to flow in the erstwhile Yamuna, but this diminishes year after year. Further, the Bhagirathi has also turned to instead meet the Yamuna leaving only Alaknanda to feed the Ganga. On the other hand, Satluj too had turned into an old Pandio channel, feeding and merging into the Ganga. The fact that Satluj is no longer meeting the Indus reduces its flow speed, even though the volume continues to be sufficient. Another minor river originating in Mansarovar also joins the Yamuna. Over in Rajasthan, the tribes in the Thar are amazed as the Ghaggar flows beyond its underground end southward at a very rapid pace. By 140 BCE, feasts and yagnas become commonplace as the Ghaggar flows southward, reaching the Gulf of Kutch. The river Saraswati, long thought to have been disappeared, is reborn. Through the cycles of monsoons and the river depositing silt, the upper reaches in the Thar start growing fertile, and people thank the gods for their fortune. On the banks of Indus, which had widened and started to meander as it slowed down, flash floods stopped completely. Alexandria on Indus is turned into an island. Farmlands are expanded, irrigation is improved, and feasts are ordered by Menander the First of the Indo-Greek kingdom. Stupas are decorated by the Buddhists, believing the good fortune being a reward for their resilience. On the other hand, the kings of Indraprastha frantically order yagnas to please the rain and river gods, as Yamuna dries up, becoming almost a narrow stream by 135 BCE. It ceases to flow in the following years, flowing only during the monsoons, and then too it stops underground. Already diminished due to the turning of Bhagirathi and now the Yamuna, the Ganga also diminishes rapidly, flowing merely as a narrow stream through Prayag. The region up to Prayag dries up, with the Ganga only regaining its width at Prayag due to the confluence of the Chambal and Ganga rivers. Droughts become imminent and people start migrating out. The people around Indraprastha, Meerut, and Mathura migrate towards the Gagar, and the people from Mathura to Banaras start migrating south, settling around the Chambal and Betwa region in Ujjain and Vidisha, some going even southwards towards the Narmada. With people arriving into the lands of the Shatavahanas, the rulers there take note. The population between Kashi and Patliputra moves further eastwards, and with the heartlands collapsing, population pressures mounting, and facing water shortage, the weakened Shungas further lose their control. By 127 BCE, in Rajasthan and Saurashtra, the majorly subsistence farmers soon start extensive farming as the soil becomes more and more fertile. The farming output in the Indus basin also grows, and with the increased navigability, the Indo-Greeks are able to consolidate their position. Due to the greater prosperity, Meander the First's successors are able to recapture the Scythians and defeat and conquer the Bactrians. And with huge waves of migration into the Punjab region, the Indo-Greeks capture territories there too, consolidating the northern reaches of Saraswati basin under them. By 120 BCE, the migration into the Saraswati Valley creates big population centers along the Saraswati River. By this time, the priests and the scripture teachers identify the expanded Gagar as the Saraswati River. They start conducting yagnas to honor Saraswati, and new settlements like Brahmagiri, Sharada Kshetra, and Vidyanagar are established. With that, a new branch of Hinduism starts forming, one centered around worship of Brahma and Saraswati, as people migrating out of the Ganga heartland grow disillusioned with the older belief systems because they seem to not have saved them from the calamity. The priests remodeled their philosophy, incorporating nature worship and the local belief systems as well. As the Indo-Greeks captured Brahmagiri, this emerging belief system comes into contact with Hellenistic and Buddhist beliefs, especially incorporating the idea of penance and suffering from the Gandharan Buddhism. On the other hand, the chieftains along the southern reaches of Saraswati as well as Saurashtra rise from both the migrants and the local population, forming a series of city-state based kingdoms. Over in the east, the populations of Patliputra start migrating further eastwards as Vanga continues to be sufficiently watered as the tributaries of Ganga in the eastern region ensure sufficient water by this point, as well as due to other rivers in the region like the Brahmaputra. With the Shungas becoming little more than local chieftains, Patliputra shrinks, with huge areas becoming ghost towns, the presence of Nalanda being the only thing ensuring its continued prominence. With population displacement and shift in agricultural centers, the landed aristocracy in Magadha and Vanga rapidly lose their power, with power shifting eastwards to Gaur, Champa, and Tamralipta. With central authority diminishing and navigability of Ganga reducing, thus drying up the internal trade, the merchants of Vanga gain increased authority and start expanding maritime trade out of Tamralipta to Toshali and Amaravati with Shatvahanas and the Utkalas. Further, urban centers are established along the Hooghly and the Brahmaputra as Tamralipta gets connected to trade through Silk Route both through Patliputra and along the Brahmaputra. New cities like Kalakshetra, Brahmaputra, Pragjotishpura, and so on are formed along these rivers. With the rise in mercantilism and a sense of disillusionment with the established faith growing, the peoples of Magadha and Vanga become more and more influenced by a strong karmic philosophy. They blame the debauchery and the lack of pride of work and duty of the past political and religious order for their hardships. This new philosophy takes on increasingly a nihilistic attitude, emphasizing that human resolve and a sense of duty and brotherhood is what helped them survive the calamity rather than divine intervention. This nihilistic attitude blends with the Shiv Shakti traditions that had been rising in these areas to give rise to an individualistic Shaivism in Vanga. This dissolves the caste system to a great extent, with ideas of class and wealth growing in prominence. Varanasi or Kashi also loses its prominence as a religious center, being surpassed by Gaya in the east and Brahmagiri in the west. By 115 BCE, taking advantage of the collapse of the Shungas, the Shatavahanas put north, capturing Ujjain, Vidisha, Tripuri, and reaching Banaras, which, being the last majorly navigable point of trade on the length of Ganga, gains prominence as a merchant port. People settled in these parts along with the Chambal, Betwa, and Narmada come increasingly in contact with the remnants of Buddhism and soon adopt Buddhism widely, as the Buddhists are able to provide answers to the disillusioned masses. The people moving into the Buddhist heartland blame the Shungas and their discrimination against Buddhism and the resulting self centered attitude of the political space to be the reason for their sorrows as well as the calamity. Mahayana Buddhism hence resurges in the Shatvana lands and influences the prevailing Hindu philosophy of the kingdom. Hence, we see the established faith of India splinter into three parts. The Sindhu Saraswati faith, centered around worshipping Brahma and Saraswati with integrated concepts of Hellenistic religion as well as nature worship. The Narmada faith, a form of Vaishnavistic Buddhism with Mahayana Buddhism resurging and mixing with some minor elements of Shatvana Vaishnavism. The Gaur faith, a nihilistic Shaivism with Shiv Shakti tradition and karmic nihilistic philosophy. Around the same time, the city-states along the Saraswati also start consolidating into bigger kingdoms. By 110 BCE, 40 years since the calamity or the miracle, depending on who you ask, the Indo-Greeks consolidate their hold on the Indus Delta. Utilizing the increased navigability of the Indus and their connections to the Silk Route, the trade flows south along the Indus to the port city of Patala or Demetropolis. From there, maritime trade reaches Sopara and south to Cochin and westwards to Persia and Alexandria. Alexandria on Indus, or Indopolis, or Sindhudurga, based on who you ask, the capital of the Indo-Greek kingdom, becomes a major trade hub and gains prominence on this route. Over in Vanga, multiple other port cities rise, feeding from the inland trade from Kashi and the Silk Route. These cities, under the influence of the merchant classes, grow in prominence, and by 110 BCE, city-states emerge in Bengal too. Tamralipta, Gaur, Kalikshetra, Brahmapura, Pragjotishpula, Patliputra, Ganganagar, and so on, each forming small kingdoms. Utkal too soon becomes absorbed into this power structure and trade system. By 100 BCE, the kingdoms along the Saraswati consolidate around Sarada Kshetra, forming a kingdom stretching from Punjab to Saurashtra. These kingdoms also absorb some merchant kingdoms emerging in Kutch. Soon, trade along the Saraswati also flourishes, with Brahmagiri being an exchange point between the Indo-Greeks and the kingdom of Saraswati. The port at Bhrigushetra also gains prominence and starts to challenge Patala. The Shatavahanas, on the other hand, have captured Kathiawar around the Gulf of Khambar, and ports of Kalyan, Sopara, and Bharokacha are used to carry out extensive trade with the Indo-Greeks, Selikids, as well as the Arab world and the West. Satavahanas also become a crucial link with trade flowing down the Indus and Saraswati from ports of Patala and Brigukshetra to either Bharokacha and then up the Narmada along Ujjain and Vidisha, Patliputra, Gaur, reaching Pragjotishpura and finally China, or through Sopara and Kalyan down the Godavari to Amravati, where it's connected to Tamralipta and Southeast Asia through maritime trade. With merchants growing in power, Vanga becomes an important trade hub with multiple competing trade routes. Soon, the trading kingdoms along the coast of Tamil Nadu also start adopting the Gaur faith and their philosophies as ideas spread around the maritime trade route. By 60 BCE, the Indo-Greek kingdom starts to decline. With civil war breaking out, the Saraswati kingdom captures Brahmagiri and the regions of Punjab as well as Patala, hence diverting a lot of trade along the Saraswati instead of the Indus. Over in Bengal, we would see the kingdom of Tamralipta expand, annexing the different port cities in the deltaic region. With their monopoly on outgoing maritime trade, the merchant kingdom at Gaur would start expanding too, trying to capture trade from the Narmada Benares route to challenge the superiority of Tamralipta. During this period of trade rivalries, accounting and bookkeeping systems are innovated, new methods are discovered, boat making and maritime technology also expands, and merchant kingdoms both in eastern and western India invest in them. 30 BCE, 120 years since the calamity, the Indo-Greek kingdoms have collapsed into a disarray of smaller kingdoms, while the kingdom of Saraswati conquered the land both in the Saraswati as well as the Indus deltaic regions, expanding into Gandhara and present-day Balochistan. Over in Banga, Tamralipta and Gaur have expanded rapidly in order to compete with each other. Tamralipta has captured all of deltaic Bengal as well as Utkal south up to the border of the Shatavahanas. On the other hand, Gaur has captured lands up to Patliputra and along the Brahmaputra river. Along the Ganga north of Banaras, small kingdoms have risen up centered at Kannauj, Prayag, Haridwar, and Garhwal. As the years go by, Saraswati expands into Gandhara and eastward, bringing Garhwal under their control. In the south, as the Satavahanas begin to decline, Tamralipta quickly pushes south, taking Amravati and the inner regions of Kalinga. Utilizing the mineral and iron resources, they expand their army and trade infrastructure. Tamralipta also lays the foundation of their merchant fleet to protect its trades from its rivals. On the other hand, enriched with the trade from Bengal, the Cholas also consolidate their rule, drawing heavily from the technology and the political systems of Vanga. As the Shatavahanas decline further, they lose Vidisha and Ujjain to local chieftains, and all of Saurashtra comes under the domain of Saraswati kingdom. Over in the east, as the trade along the southeast grows, Tamraliptan merchants with grants from the kingdom establish outposts in modern-day Burma. In the kingdom itself, following their rapid expansion and overstretch of resources, the ruling classes begin the work of consolidation. The existing guild system, as well as the mercantile origin of the state, gives rise to a council-based system where the power is distributed among cities or nagaras, where the nagarpal or the head of the city would, with the council of ministers, administer the city as well as its hinterlands. At the head of the state would be the Rajpalak, a hereditary position who would also be the Nagarpal of Tamralipta, which was the capital. Over in Saraswati, administration would be based on the Greek system of satraps, who would pay tribute and military resources to the kings. Based in Vidyanagar, they would expand and consolidate their hold over the whole of the northeast region using this system. On the other hand, while the kingdom of Gaur would retain the old system of politics under the Mauryans, the power centers would again shift to the merchants from the aristocrats. With a period of consolidation in each kingdom beginning, the borders would remain relatively stable, but internally, technology and innovation would progress at a rapid pace. Saraswati would see a huge scholarly advancement in literature, sciences, history, and philosophy. The first written account of the incident of 150 BCE would emerge over this time. Over in Banga, both in Gaur and Tamralipta, merchants would fund the innovation in economics, philosophy, accounting, and transportation. The urbanization in the region would also give rise to literary pursuits and specialized professions like accountants, legal experts, bookkeepers, and so on. By the year of 10 BCE, Avanti would also declare independence from the Shatavahanas, bringing the port of Bharokachcha under them. With the lucrative trading port in their control, Avanti soon consolidates and brings both Ujjain and Vidisha into a confederation with them, hence capitalizing on the trade flowing from Bharokachcha to Kashi into the lands of Gaur. With competition growing, Tamralipta decides to bring the whole of the eastern coastal holdings of Shatavahanas under their realm in order to secure the trade routes, while expanding their outposts to the Malay Peninsula and Malaccas. Some outposts in Burma also grow to become full-fledged city-states. Over in the south of India, the Cholas consolidate along the coast, adopting the council-based system like in Tamralipta. They expand along the coastal cities while maintaining close relations with Tamralipta itself. As the Shatvana dynasty collapses into civil war between Vidarbha and the Andhra Shatvanas, it soon becomes a war of trade control, with Tamralipta conquering into the heartlands of Andhra up the Godavari while Avanti attacks Vidarbha. Soon, the Andhra Shatvanas are established as the vassals of Tamralipta. On the other hand, Avanti establishes their control over Vidarbha. The newly arisen Abhira dynasty finds itself at the crossroads of this trade conflict. With the control of Sopara and Kalyan in their hands, they are an object of interest for both Tamralipta, who want to secure their Godavari trade route, and Avanti, who want to monopolize on the trade in the region towards Banaras route. Utilizing their position, the Abiras negotiate an alliance of protection with the Shatvahanas and the Tamralipta. With the western trade secure for the time being, Tamralipta continues expanding their outposts east, some of which grow into their own kingdom. The Cholas too grow their trade into Sri Lanka as well as Malaccas. Soon they also negotiate a treaty of protection with the formidable Tamralipta merchant navy. With their intervention in Andhra, the Tamil states come into close contact with Tamralipta as well, adopting further their culture, philosophies, and administrative systems. Over in central India, Avanti starts monopolizing over the trade and threatening Abhira. The erstwhile rivals of Gaur and Tamralipta then come together to form an alliance against Avanti to protect their trade interests. They agree that Gaur will vassalize Avanti and keep Araukacha while Tamralipta will keep Sopara and Abhira. On the other hand, over the years, Saraswati also expands into the areas of Kannauj and Indraprastha, vassalizing the local rulers, with an eye of dominating all of the western trade. They form an alliance with Avanti, promising them full control over Abhira. Over in the south, the two trade axes also collide in the Tamil kingdoms, where the Cholas side with the Vanga axis, being linked extensively with Tamraliptan trade, while the Cheras and the Malabar kingdoms side with Avanti and Saraswati being on their side of the trade network. The Tamil region becomes riddled with proxy conflicts as the two axes come closer and closer to actual conflict. The two sides of this conflict represent two different systems of governance and economy, with the landed, aristocratic, production based empires of Avanti and Saraswati clash with the mercantile, maritime, trade based, council based empires of Tamralipta, Chola, and Gaur. With the new divide emerging culturally, politically, and economically along a new diagonal previously unseen in India between the northwest and the southeast, the subcontinent settles into a new period of empire struggle. And it is not just the dividing line that is different in this timeline. The importance of trade in this timeline and in the subcontinent of this timeline is much greater than it has ever been in our timeline. The political power is governed by trade here. The trade routes are contentious commodities which empires are now fighting over. And that change has been brought about by the calamity of 150 BCE. And that is where I'll end the scenario for now. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a great day ahead. Also, don't forget to like and share to support the growing empire of ours and subscribe to join its administrative ranks. Also, I would like to give an update. I have finished my internship and I'm taking a break currently before moving on to masters. So, you should be seeing these videos a little more regularly for at least the next 6 7 months. So, look forward to it and thank you.